The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And boy, we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Chip, I'm very sorry for your loss. I heard that you lost a very old and tremendous friend this week.
Yeah, well, I think it's a little bit of irony has struck. You know, I spent a few minutes on the last show talking about how Bobby Karam and I went back a long way, and, you know, we lived in the same house, and we had history together. And even though we didn't agree philosophically on most political issues, you know, we had a conversation, and you know, we supposedly ended that conversation still as friends who disagree on certain issues. And he called me yesterday, actually, to tell me we were no longer friends because I told you that I received the call. I don't know if his definition of friendship is that you know, we have to hide things, and, you know, the fact is that we are always totally forthcoming to each other about issues. We work together on this show, and whether we agree or disagree, you know, if it's got something to do with a story that's on the show, I'm not going to suppress anything for anybody. And he, above all people, should know that. When I took over the union, we had issues about me doing my union activities, since he was a very, very good friend with Carlton Viveris. So he should know better than that. So he has chosen to, you know, to banish me from his Christmas card list. And, well, I guess I'll have to live with that. But I'll remind him that if you're not my friend, well, so be it. But I am not Toby, you know. So if you want to come at me, I am going to come right back at you. I don't know whether, you know, what your plans are, but the fact is I'm going to do what I'm going to do. It's nothing personal until you make it personal. And if you make it personal, then it will be personal. So it's too bad that, you know, you and a lot of people can't separate personal from business. Look, it's business. The reality is, look, you're a rich guy. You've supported a lot of high-powered politicians, including governors. You've hosted times for the governor at the Fall River Country Club, and when Weld was here, and you know, and I understand that. Look, you've got a lot of money. You support people who let rich people keep their money, and we have been on the opposite side for a long time. I represent people who had to work, you know, fight for every little pay raise, and now I represent people who, if we're lucky, they get $360 for a cost of living increase a year. That's less than $1 a day before taxes. So obviously we have been on different sides of that issue, but that doesn't change the fact that, you know, we did grow up together. I don't hold it personally against you. You're doing what is best for you and your circle of friends who are the 1%ers, so to speak, in Fall River. And I do for my people, the people who I represent, who are the people who work in this city and work for wages. They don't work for six-figured salaries, and most of them now are retirees on fixed income. So maybe never the twain shall meet, but, you know, so we are no longer friends, and since we've spoken twice in the last 20 years, both in the last week, I don't think I'm going to miss it too much. So with that, we'll just move on, and we'll wait for, you know, for any kind of retaliation or something, because obviously he's a little upset over your story, CJ, and the fact that you know, we've made this public, which I think is our obligation.
Well, you know, Chip, I find it very interesting. You know, we're always perceived or broadcasted by people that we're negative. And I tell people, it's not that the individual or individuals are negative. It is the people who refute the facts that are presented by these individuals in a negative and hateful manner that make the entire situation negative. It's not that the facts are negative, it's that your retaliation makes it negative. And understand, you can call me negative, you can call you negative, Chip, you can call the people negative. That does not douse their fire. It does not have them turn around and say, the heck with this, I'm just going to go away. No, it fuels the fire and causes them to bring out more of these facts. So when you retaliate in such a manner that does not have facts, but has emotion or opinion, clarify it. If it's your opinion, I'm not going to fight your opinion. Your opinion is your opinion. But if it's a whole line of camel hockey, guess what? It's not going anywhere because it doesn't work that way. And people don't understand that. They just don't.
Yeah, you're right, CJ, and that's one of the problems that we always have. The reality is that, look, we continue to say it's not personal with us, and obviously some people can say it is, but it isn't, because I have many friends that I totally disagree with politically, and I had a conversation with one on the phone last night, I always separated that. But the fact is that, negative, the word negative, these are labels. I've talked many times about labels. These are things to really cloud the issue. And they call people negative. They get personal. It's because they don't have a legitimate argument. That's a manifestation of a weak argument. The reality is that, listen, it's not negative. I mean, recently, before someone portrayed the recall as a tumultuous, negative kind of thing. So, they love the word negative if they don't like it. If they like it, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. If they dislike your position, then you're negative. Well, you can call the recall was tumultuous, but say it's negative, I don't know. I mean, you can have that opinion, but I think that opinion is a very weak argument, because I think saying that the people rising up to take back their government is negative, that the recall movement was somehow negative because we attacked an incumbent mayor and got him out of office. That's what this country was based on. I mean, I'll read you the Declaration of Independence if you really want me to, but it says that, when in the course of human events, and then it goes on to say that it's our obligation, not only our right, but our obligation, to rid ourselves of a government that's not working for the people. So when I hear stuff like this, and I hear people twisting the recall, listen, the recall wasn't only about purple bags. It was about stormwater fees. It was about, all kinds of things. The purple bags was just the final straw that broke the camel's back. But what the recall was, really, the bottom line was, the people exercising their right to get rid of a government that they felt was not working in their best interest. And anybody who calls that action negative, I think you probably should move to Russia, because if you think that's negative, I think that's un-American, because that's what America's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a nation where we can change and we control our government. This is a republic, which is a representative form of government. And guess who they're supposed to represent? The people. Not just the rich people, not just the poor people, but all the people. So that's what I've got to say about that. And we hear this all the time. And anytime we come out with an opinion, look, if you have your opinion, as CJ said, if I think it's wrong, I'll tell you it's wrong. But if it's an opinion, there's no use arguing about it. If it's a fact or something like that, we'll argue on facts. We'll debate on performance. We'll debate on people's records and what we feel. But, the reality is, we want a responsive government, a government that listens to the people and does what's best for the people. And with that, I'll segue into look what's happening. We now finally have an investigation, thanks in a great part to CJ's hobby of never stopping to file complaints. But finally, the Inspector General is investigating Windowgate. And why? Now, how many people went before the council? How many people were outraged and said, let's do something about it? And finally, something's being done about it. I'm not sure about the timing right before an election, but the fact is that at least something's being done. But my problem with this is, why did it take so long?
Well, you know, Chip, I actually called the IG's office, and, you know, we got the standard commentary that we cannot comment on pending investigations, which we get that all the time. So I did a little bit of a hypothetical. Hypothetically, what could happen to anyone involved in this situation? Well, you know, that then gets kicked over to the Attorney General and the decision has to be made. Okay, hypothetically, who is this investigation into, a type of investigation like this? Would this involve the then mayor, the city administrator, the department heads, the DCM director? Well, again, hypothetically, anybody who's involved in the procurement and the approval of this type of event could be held liable for this. So hypothetically, the leading city council candidate, Shawn, I'll screw the city of Fall River, Kadeem, I think that was a little loaded, but, you know, after all, the fire department endorsed him for mayor, and I'm sure they're endorsing him for city council now because he gave them such a cushy contract, making them millionaires. That's an exaggeration. They weren't made millionaires, but gave them everything under the sun and produced a fire department contract and budget that had the overtime budget go through the roof. Mr. Kadeem, these are facts. If you want to refute them, feel free to. But he could technically be held liable for this. Because guess what? Nobody's going to tell me that every day he walked into City Hall, he didn't see the scaffolding. I know when I drove by City Hall, I saw the scaffolding. So if he didn't, was he going through a temporary blindness or a convenient blindness? You know, we have to ask ourselves these questions. And, you know, I went through some of the old tapes of the election in December. And I listened to then Mayor Will Flanagan. And, you know, on several of the issues, he was absolutely correct. Okay? He had people running against him during this electoral process that did nothing for the 5 years he was in office prior to that election, that special election. They did nothing. They just did what they said. I mean, and he called out people like Mike Mayoza and Shawn Kadeem. And, you know, and we look at it and we say, you see the alliances, and we talk about alliances all the time on the show here, Chip. We see these alliances constantly, and we know that it's a big joke. So right now, we're looking at alliances for this election. I have to give, you know, some kudos to FRC Media and FRG TV for broadcasting the forums and the debates to date, because they brought out a lot of information. And you've seen a lot of people, a lot of candidates, a lot of people who are running through this entire process who, you know, are basically now trying to compete against Shawn Kadeem, Cliff Ponte, Richard Cabaceres, and Pam LeBeau. These are four people which lead the election. They lead since the primary. And God forbid they get elected. This is an opinion, people. God forbid these four people get elected, because Shawn Kadeem saw nothing wrong with the Flanagan administration or the backhanded, backdoor deals that were cut. And he may now be subject to an IG investigation and more. Pam LeBeau made sure that she got everything she wanted, okay, when she was president of the St. Anne's Neighborhood Association. She got her park, her, you know, inclusion park, her handicap accessibility park. I'm all for handicap accessibility for everything, but she made sure she got it in her park for her kids. And that's what a mother does. They make sure that their children get what they need. She kissed Flanagan's rump more often than God has angels, to the point that her husband got a no-bid contract to put in the tiles and do some of the work on the 6th floor to create the Taj Mahal bathroom, which, Chip, you had the pleasure of seeing, you and your tours. So this is what we have. Now you have Richard Cabaceres, Mr. We can take a fire engine and roll it around the city all winter long to meet the needs. That doesn't meet the needs. Chip, you know that. I know that. Okay? And Cliff Ponte, major supporters are tax dodgers. They don't pay property taxes. Cliff isn't telling those people, look, I don't want your money. Take your money back because that money should be paid to the city. No, he made sure he took it. He had Shawn Kadeem, Kevin Aguiar, and other political insiders at his campaign events. These are people that are entrenched in the problem in Fall River. And that's the problem we have in the election process. That the people that run are hand-selected by incumbents and by people in office so that they can get the necessary votes. So let's look at this from a reality point of view. If those 4 get elected and you have the as you like to call them, Chip, the Sutter sellouts reelected, okay? That's 8 people right there. That's 8 people. So you have one other one, which will be Steve Long, that gets thrown into that batch. Okay? You've now got basically an 8-1 or 9-0 vote. There is going to be, and this is my prediction, there will be no representation of the people on the city council because these 4 leaders have never said one word in their campaign speeches, in their campaign paraphernalia, that even said, I'm going to represent what the people want. It's a joke.
Well, why don't you tell us the way you really feel, CJ? Well, no, but you're right. And I recently saw an interview with the Council Vice President Ray Mitchell talking about, the misspending of $550,000 and that resulted in the Taj Mahal, the bathroom. And of course, the story, and I believe you called to get it fixed, it talked about out of sequence. The last thing built was the thing that they secured the money for, which was the handicap bathrooms. But the reality was, he's talking about how they were lied to, the council was lied to, and they were duped, and blah, blah, blah. But you know something? It did come to light. It did come to light. And many of us went before the council and complained about Windowgate and complained about the spending. And they discussed it at length. And what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They talk, and when the cameras are there, they talk some more, and everybody talks a little bit. And then what happens? Did anybody on that council say, I am going to fight and demand an investigation now? I want to know why the Fall River Police aren't investigating, the state police, somebody. I want an investigation. Now everybody is saying, oh, the IG's coming down, we're going to have an investigation. Isn't that amazing? Finally. Well, that's right, finally. The question has to be asked, if these people truly represent the interests of the people of Fall River and the taxpayers of Fall River, why wasn't someone on that council standing up on the desk, if he had to, or in the well on the table, saying, I will not stop until this is investigated? I mean, it's just incomprehensible to me how you could have a sitting mayor say he didn't know what was going on when they put windows in his own office, that they had scaffolding, they had a crane there for months. It's ludicrous. And then you wonder why people from other communities look at this city and say, wow, what a disaster they are down there. Does anybody there have they're like the Scarecrow. They need a brain, in the Wizard of Oz. And this is why. And people, this is what bothers me about this election. And there are a lot of people unhappy with Sam Sutter. And in my opinion, and it's my opinion, that's justifiable, justifiably so. I think you should be extremely upset with his performance and his lack of understanding of the plight of the people who were making $23,000 or $24,000 and trying to be, and the people on fixed incomes, because his only answer is to raise taxes. But everybody seems to think like the city council is just this dangling appendage that, what the hell, I'm gonna vote for people because I like them, or they gave me a hot dog, or they said hello to me on the street, or they got my cousin his street light fixed in one day, and, you know, because it's meaningless. They're believing this hype, this thing that the city council have been doing for years, saying, oh, we got nothing to do with it. We got a strong mayor. Oh, we've got a strong mayor, which means that we have no power. No, it doesn't. It means you have a strong mayor. But realistically, that's not even accurate. Yeah, he's strong as far as, because he obviously is the administrative part of the government. But you control the purse strings. As Mike Mioza used to always love to say, he proposes and you dispose. Well, you forgot about that. You're right. You can dispose. And you have two ways to dispose. You can dispose by funding it and thereby agreeing with whatever the mayor did. That is an acquiescence, to assent by silence. By the agreement of the council to do what the mayor says, you're saying you agree with that action. Or you could dispose of it in the waste paper basket. And if you don't fund it, guess what? It doesn't get done. Because what happens on the state and federal levels whenever they're looking at anything, it goes to the Ways and Means Committee. The Ways and Means Committee is the strongest committee on the federal and state level. Because if they don't find a way to fund it, it doesn't happen. And no collective bargaining agreement, no expenditure on windows happens unless you approve it. So the city council is responsible for this mismanagement of money. And that's why, and I'm not saying they should have not, they shouldn't have believed the mayor when he said they were going to use it for something, then used it for something else. But there should have been accountability. There should have been consequences for lying to the city council, and that consequence was not like a 2-hour meeting where everybody says, oh me, oh my, this is wrong, oh yeah, you're right, oh this is terrible, and we should do this and we should do that and do nothing. This is why it's just as important to put some people in there after you examine their credentials who are running on the platform that they're going to be an independent voice, and an independent voice of the people, not of the current administration or not of the rich power brokers. This is why these elections, the school committee and to city council, are just as important, people. Don't vote for somebody because you say, well, I like to watch them at the council meeting because it's like a comedy show. That's wrong. CJ, no, you've got to have something to say about that.
I've been keeping my mouth shut here. I'll tell you, it makes me laugh because you look at Shawn Kadeem, who does have a track record. He was a school committee member. He was a city administrator, okay? Never did he vote against anything as a school administrator that the school superintendent, and we go back to Nick Fisher, and the mayor wanted. There was never a problem, okay? That's what you're going to get, all right? You're also going to get a city councilor who is subject to an inspector general's investigation, who has the ear of a talk show host who he's related to on WSAR, who touts his glory at every time he gets a chance on the show. Okay? So already you have one person who's in the power broker firm. All right? They're part of that whole scenario. The other three, okay, Cabaceres, Ponte, and Lebeau, are going to serve their own self-interest. They have already negotiated out their power brokers, okay? But I think the funny thing that we have to look at to move a little bit beyond this power broker move is the fact that we now have an investigation. Amazon has broken ground in violation of everything that Biopark was created for. In violation of it. The governor, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, the Department of Revenue, DCM, okay, all turned around, DCR, Department of Communities and Recreation, all said, we don't know, we can't see. You know, they walked around with blinders on, and it didn't matter what the people said. All right? $35 million stolen by the city council and the mayors plural, from the Commonwealth taxpayer. Not from the Fall River taxpayer, because God knows we don't have money to flush a toilet in this town, okay? But from the Commonwealth taxpayer. And nobody wants to address it. But now that this is a big thing, now that this has got into the hands of CNN and the Boston Globe and the New York Times, now I can get a phone call from the executive branch of state government saying, why didn't you bring this to me? And I said, oh, it's very simple. I did. I've got the signed receipt showing you got it. Again, you failed to exercise your job under the law. Article 5 specifically says that your authority comes from who? Comes from me. And it doesn't work that way. But they don't want to hear it. And we know this, Chip. We say it all the time. But, you know, now we're looking at what's happening in Fall River today. We're now going to try for the Paw Sox. Okay? Another, you know, pie-in-the-sky dream. I hope that they can do something with it. But where are they going to put it? In the South End. They already said they're going to put it in the South End. Okay? And the Paw Sox still says we haven't entered into any negotiations with Fall River. So, again, it's a before-election type of situation. And the funny part about it is I've gone looking for the deed on the land for Amazon. I haven't seen the transfer yet. Not that it hasn't happened. But I know that it won't be Amazon who buys that land. It's a company called Trammell Crow. Okay? So when Amazon loses their tax incentives and everything else, that warehouse is going to sit there vacant, and we're going to try to do something with it. And it's not going to be much. Now they've upped it to possibly 1,000 jobs. Remember, people, the TIF doesn't call for 1,000 jobs. It calls for 500. And again, it doesn't say that those are continuous full-time jobs. But the same situation is going to apply. Fall River residents won't get the jobs because, 1, they can't pass a criminal background check. 2, they can't pass a drug test. Okay? And we have this because our city council, our mayor, our district attorney, our state government, and our state judiciary says when you are convicted of a drug crime that you get sent to Fall River. And then you stay here after you're done with your court-mandated treatment at Stanley Street Treatment and Resources. Okay? So Nancy Paul's making $1 million a year for herself, but she's screwing the people of Fall River. But again, she's one of the big employers, so everybody needs to keep her happy. So.
Well, you're right. And along those lines, I suggest that somebody, if you're on Facebook, which I don't, you know, I just can't do that. But many of you are. You like Facebook. And one of our friends and a co-panelist with us on the Richard Urban Show, Dan Robillard, wrote a very nice article about just that and asked many questions about how the city eliminated certain programs. They had a youth forum last night here, and a lot of good things were brought up by some of the problems that our youth are facing. And Dan really hit it out of the park with his thing about all the programs that the city has eliminated from the school department that addressed some of those problems. And STAR also was mentioned. But if go on there, see if you can find that article. It's pretty good, and it was a well thought out article. So do your homework. Again, we always say that. Do your homework. Remember, this is a critical election. Just changing mayors isn't enough. We have to remember that the council is part of this. So stay angry, stay educated, and
see you Friday.
And we will see you Friday.
Hey, tomorrow's another debate here on Channel 95, 6 p.m.
That's right. Don't forget.